You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast, www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
You couldn't pay me to live in West Virginia. You could try, but you'd have to pay me more than the $12,000 West Virginia is right now offering people to relocate to that state. And they do need people. They need more people in West Virginia. The state has been shrinking for decades. The population of the United States more than doubled between 1950 and today, from 150 million people to 330 million people. 2 million people lived in West Virginia in 1950. Only 1.8 million people live there today. Healthcare, infrastructure, the economy, education, the state ranks last or close to last in all those categories. So getting people to move there, it can't be easy, which is why West Virginia is bribing people to move there or sweetening the pot. Move there and the state will give you $10K in your first year, another $2K in your second year. That kind of money, $12,000 in 2 years, would go a long way toward helping, say, immigrants settle in West Virginia. Immigrants have revived a lot of small towns in Washington state, where I live, over the last couple of decades. But West Virginia does not want immigrants. West Virginia voted for Donald fucking Trump by 40 fucking points in 2020. West Virginia wants highly educated tech workers, not highly motivated immigrants. Immigrants, they start new businesses at higher rates than people who were born here, less likely to commit violent crimes than people who were born here, but West Virginia doesn't want any of that. They want tech people, remote workers, entrepreneurs. They want highly educated people, but the kind of highly educated people who want their kids to go to schools where they don't teach evolution and their teachers aren't vaccinated. Those highly educated people. Joe Jeffries was elected to West Virginia's State House of Delegates in 2018 to do something about West Virginia's falling population. He's a family guy, conservative, Christian, West Virginians for Life, and the Family Council of West Virginia, two anti-choice, anti-gay organizations, endorsed him. He sponsored a bill when he got into the House of Delegates that would ban sex education in West Virginia, any mention of sex in schools, because he was very, very angry to learn that some school sex ed programs acknowledge the existence of gay kids. It will come as no surprise to anyone that Joe Jeffries is an asshole. I mean, he is a Republican elected official, and I am talking about him on the top of my podcast. Of course, he's an asshole. He was required to wear a mask in the state capitol during the pandemic and showed up with a mesh mask. And he brags about his endorsement from West Virginians for Health Freedom, which is a group of anti-vax crackpots that encourages parents not to get their kids vaccinated because pro-life until birth. I can't keep track of all the Republican assholes out there introducing bad bills in state legislatures all over the country. There are hundreds of them, thousands of them, and only one of me. But Jeffries did something last week that got him onto my radar. And surprise, 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 it was not sucking a dick. He was giving sex advice. He was doing some gonzo sex ed, I guess, on TikTok, which is an online video sharing app popular with teenagers, with high school students, with the same people Jeffries doesn't want getting sex ed or having access to birth control or abortion services or information about being gay in schools. He was putting stuff out there, though, on this platform where kids, teens, including in West Virginia, congregate. Anyway, here's a taste, courtesy of independent West Virginia journalist Aaron Beck. Here's a taste, one of Jeffries' videos. He's sitting in a car, leering at the camera, and he says,
all these women be out here talking about how a man never hits the G-spot. Have you ever hit his?
Okay, it's not every day that an anti-gay, pro-life state rep endorses anal play with dudes on the receiving end. Now, I really wish I could play the video that Jeffries made about cunnilingus for you, but it's not out there. Jeffries set his TikTok to private right after the shit hit the fan, and that one didn't get copied or saved or reposted. Reporters at WOWK CBS 13 News saw it and said it was too vulgar to even describe So thank goodness for West Virginia Metro News. They were not afraid to go there. They have the transcript, which I shall now read. A woman looking at the camera says, they, presumably she's referring to men here, they say sit on your face. Do you, men, mean sit or hover? Jeffries answers, so here's the thing, I can't do his accent. I'm just going to do me. Here's the thing, ladies. If he's not pushing you up, gasping for air, then you are probably doing it wrong. You should be rubbing that thing all over his face, like hard. His nose should be shoving your clit so far back up inside of you that it drives you wild. Sit, not hover. Sit, push down all your weight. He'll take care of the rest. Joe Jeffries is in a lot of trouble right now. All those conservative Christian organizations in West Virginia that endorsed him, they've stayed silent. They haven't rescinded their endorsements, not yet. But his Republican colleagues stripped him of his committee assignments, and the governor of West Virginia has called on him to resign. The Republican Party put out a statement condemning him, and he is all anyone on West Virginia Twitter is talking about right now. But no one's talking about the sex advice he gave, which, you know, in my professional opinion, not bad. I mean, vulgar, but, you know, as sex advice goes, not bad. He endorsed penetration play for straight guys with straight guys on the receiving end of the penetration. The prostate is what people are talking about when they refer to the male G-spot, and there's only one way to find it, and that's by going in. And I believe I've given similar advice to women about cunnilingus, about sitting on guys' faces. Don't be shy, ladies. Grind, grind, grind. But I am not a Republican state legislator, and my work has never been endorsed by the Family Council of West Virginia or any other state. But I do qualify, as someone who works remotely, for the money West Virginia is willing to pay people to move there. Can't say, as I'm tempted, maybe a few more zeros to the left of that decimal point might do it, but it's nice to know that if I did move there, there's at least one guy in West Virginia who might be able to find my G-spot. All right, coming up on today's show on both the Micro and Magnum editions of the Savage Lovecast, John McWhorter is here to talk about his new book, 9 Dirty Words. We talk on the Micro. That conversation continues on the Magnum that you can subscribe to at savagelovecast.com. And while you're online subscribing to the Savage Lovecast Magnum edition, why not take a moment to pre-order Savage Love from A to Z, a new book-length collection of adults-only essays celebrating the 30th anniversary of Savage Love, the column. Go to savagelovecast.com/shop to pre-order your copy of Savage Love A to Z today. Those books go on sale September 21st. And now your calls and John McWhorter on today's Lovecast. Support for today's show, support we are very grateful for, comes from Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, you can access all the amazing services of the post office right from your desk in your own home, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just click, print, mail, and you are done. It could not be easier. And right now, use Savage for this special offer. Includes up to $55 worth of free postage, a digital scale, and a 4-week trial. Do not wait. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Savage. That's Stamps.com. Enter SAVAGE. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Calm, the #1 app for meditation and sleep. For a limited time, my listeners get 40% off a Calm premium subscription by going to calm.com/savage. You make fixes around the house, you take care of things. Why not fix your ED too? Take care of that. Roman's licensed healthcare professionals can help you find the best treatment. Visit getroman.com/savage for $15 off your first order. That's getroman.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. Late 30s cis straight male in the Pacific Northwest calling in. So I have been married for a couple of years. My wife and I have been together about 5-ish now. And while at the initial beginning of our relationship, everything was fantastic, just madly in love with her. And my wife and I had this amazing sexual connection. That's really, really fallen apart. And I think in part pushed on by being so locked in with each other during COVID lockdown. But it's got to the point where our sex life has completely fallen apart, and my wife has said that she has no attraction to me whatsoever. This is really difficult for me. I had a partner previously who was somewhere on the asexuality spectrum, and that became a big source of conflict in our relationship. And it's very difficult when I am still very attracted to my wife and try to reach out for moments of intimacy and am met, if not with revulsion, disinterest, which, is not very good for the ego. We've been trying to see if there's anything that we can do about it, but it doesn't seem to be helping. And it's not helped by the fact that, my wife has had a lot of different sexual experiences. So she feels very much that it's not as if there's new sexual things that she could explore with me that might be interesting. She's kind of disinterested in that. Our relationship is also open, and while I'm very happy for her to go out and have experiences with people, especially doing things that I am not super interested in, I don't begrudge her any pleasure or joy she can find in that. I'm definitely not interested in our relationship being open just so I can have that sexual connection with somebody else that feels like she's delegating the sex part of our relationship elsewhere. And frankly, I'm not interested in that in my primary partner. We're in counseling, and sort of through talking with our counselor, it was really hit home that I see sex as being a big part of love for me. It's a big part of that connection. And so not having that bit of the connection has made me feel further and further away from my wife, whereas she feels sex as more of a way of connecting with people, but not necessarily something she's into once that connection has been established. So for her, sex is more about discovery and being admired and seeing the unknown. And as many things as I might try to do, I can't make myself another person. So yeah, I'm just looking for any suggestions you might have. I very much love my wife, and I would love to stay with her. I would love to be able to have a history with her. And I can only hope that as things open up with COVID winding down, that, we'll be able to find new ways of connecting with each other.
You're halfway there. You recognize that you can't turn yourself into someone else. You can't make yourself into another person. What you have to accept is that you can't make your wife into someone else. You can't turn her into another person. You're going to have to listen to what she's telling you. And what she's telling you, I guess, we've been hearing about demisexuals for a while. Now we're hearing about phrasexuals, phrasexuality. Those are people who lose interest in a sex partner. The more they get to know them, the more intimate the relationship becomes, the less interested they are in someone sexually. And what your wife is telling you, in all respects, is that she's a phrasexual. We used to call those people emotionally stunted assholes. Now we know it's a sexual orientation and we shouldn't shame them. She can't connect with you sexually. She's made it clear that for her, sex is about adventure, novelty, risk-taking, making a connection, but something about a lasting connection, the erotic interest, the erotic tension, the connection drains away for her. Maybe she didn't know that when she made a commitment to you 5 years ago. Maybe that commitment explicitly or implicitly at the time included a promise of an ongoing sustained sexual connection. She knows it now. She's made it clear to you now in therapy. I also want to cite here, of course, the research, Dr. Wednesday Martin, she's been on the show a bunch. Studies into female sexuality have shown that a woman's sexual interest in a male partner in a committed relationship, particularly a monogamous committed relationship, falls off faster than a male sexual interest in a female sexual partner. That women are, despite everything we've been told to the contrary, wired for novelty and new experiences. And a long-term committed, sexually exclusive relationship can really snuff out a woman's libido. But that's not the case here. Your wife isn't in an exclusive, committed, monogamous sexual relationship. She's in an open relationship, so she can seek novelty and newness elsewhere and still have you, and yet she isn't interested in you. And yet her libido, where you're concerned, still seems pretty extinguished, which points to not boredom as the problem, but your wife's neosexual orientation, phrasexual. And so now you have to make a decision about whether you want to stay in a companionate marriage where you're both free to seek sex partner, sexual connections elsewhere. You said it was open. You said your marriage was open. You didn't say if it was polyamorous. If it's polyamorous, it would be possible for you to have an ongoing, sustained romantic, emotional, and sexual connection with somebody who isn't, like your wife, asexual. Perhaps, if you were willing. But if you're not willing to settle for that kind of marriage, for a polyamorous marriage, for a polyamorous relationship with your wife that's sexless and companionate, and sexual connections, including strong, emotional, romantic sexual connections with other partners, then you're going to have to end this. No amount of dragging your wife back into therapy and trying to talk her into being someone she's already told you she isn't is going to change her. Just like her laying this shit down in front of you didn't change you. So that brings us, as so many questions and problems do, to price of admission conversations. Is that the price of admission you're willing to pay to stay in this marriage? To accept that you can't change your wife and to adjust your own expectations and seek what you need outside the marriage while staying in the marriage. And if that's not a price of admission that you're willing to pay, you're going to have to get the fuck out. And hopefully your wife, if she didn't know this about herself before you two married, knows this about herself now and will, before she makes another long-term commitment to someone else who might expect that that long-term commitment, romantic commitment, a marriage-type commitment, includes sex, that she makes it clear that it won't. And she'll find somebody in the future who wants what she wants or is capable of what she's capable of, which is a sustained, companionate, committed relationship, companionate marriage, but not a sustained sexual connection as a component of that marriage. But if that's what you want, and it's what you want. It's what you said you want from marriage. Okay, that's what you want from marriage. You're going to have to seek a different wife to get that from, because the wife you've got now can't give you that in the marriage you're in now. So, good luck. Squeaky doors, clogged sinks, finicky engines. When things break around the house, you take care of it. However, when something's off in the bedroom, a lot of people just try not to think about it. Come on, man. What are you waiting for? Take care of that. Take care of your ED now. Go to getroman.com/savage. With Roman, you can get a free online evaluation and ongoing care for ED, all from the comfort and privacy of your home. A U.S. licensed healthcare professional will work with you to find the best treatment plan. If medication is appropriate, it ships to you free with 2-day shipping. The whole process is straightforward and the whole process is discreet. Getting started is simple. Just go to getroman.com/savage and complete an online visit. Take care of your ED without leaving your home. Complete an online visit today to connect with a healthcare professional and take care of it. Go to getroman.com/savage now. You'll get $15 off your first month. It's really time to take care of your ED. And remember, get started today and you will save $15 on your first order of ED treatment at getroman.com/savage.
Hi, Dan Savage and the tech-savvy at-risk youth. I'm a 22-year-old bi woman living on the East Coast, and I had a question about special guests. So I'm in a relationship with a straight man, and first and foremost, I just want to clarify this for the audience. Not all bi people are like this, but I personally do really miss having sexual intimate time with women. And I brought this up to my boyfriend and asked about opening the relationship. And he said he was down. The only thing is that he would only want it to be threesomes. And I'm completely okay with that. I feel like it would be really cool collaborating with them, very sexy. So I'm down with it. The only thing is I have not had a sexual relationship with a woman in a long time. And I have a lot of nerves surrounding it. So I asked him if it would be fine if I just had a one-on-one with the special guest first, and then we could do the threesomes. That way I could just have that time to acclimate to the whole situation. He said that was fine, but the only thing he's worried about is our special guest ditching us before we actually get to the threesome. I said that we could all get together and meet up with a potential special guest and talk about what we want, but at the end of the day, I can't really control her actions. So I'm just wondering if you think this is a viable model for the type of open relationship that we want.
Sounds like a perfectly viable model for the open relationship that you want, so long as your boyfriend can wrap his head around the, let's just call it a likelihood, so he's braced for it, that the first woman you find that you're interested in, who's open to the idea of a threesome with you and your boyfriend and up for hooking up with you first, she may bail. She may not enjoy sex with you. That sometimes happens. I'm sure sex with you is amazing and awesome, but of course that's a subjective judgment, a subjective experience. She may decide she doesn't want to hook up with you again, boyfriend or no boyfriend, and bail. That's a risk. But there's a reward for your boyfriend if, she comes through, if she wants to have that threesome. And that reward, the threesome, the girl, boy, bi threesome, that's a pretty awesome reward. It's on a lot of guys' top 10 list or top 2 lists of sexual experiences they'd like to have. And so he should be willing to run that. I don't want to call it a small risk. I think you should go to him and say, this is a considerable risk. This could happen. Let's game out how you're going to feel if I get to fuck some girl and then no threesome results from that. And if he's going to be super angry, well, then not a viable model for an open relationship. But if he can project himself into that circumstance and he can say, well, I'll be disappointed, but I won't be angry. I won't take it out on you. And of course, he can say those things. And then in the moment, it might not be true, but it's likelier that he'll hit those emotional marks if he's projected himself into that possibility and committed to hitting those emotional marks. You have to allow him to be disappointed, but he can't be vindictive. He can't be angry. He can't be butt sore about it because he knew that this was a risk going in, and he knew that this risk was worth it because the reward would be so tremendous. And even if the first woman that you meet up with and you have sex with in anticipation of having a threesome with your boyfriend later, if she doesn't come through, if that doesn't happen, doesn't mean it won't happen with the second woman or the third woman. He will eventually get his reward. So, if I were him, I would wait very patiently for this to happen and be very excited about the reward that was coming my way. If not the first time you hooked up with another woman, certainly within the first few times you hooked up with other women. So you're asking me if I think this is a viable open relationship model for you and your boyfriend. And I'm going to kick that back to you. You know your boyfriend better than I do. How does he handle a disappointment? If he can handle it well, if he can roll with it, if he can keep it in perspective, if he can keep his expectations in check, if he doesn't feel entitled to everything that anybody gets or that you get, okay, yeah, this could work. If, however, he's none of those things, if you're worried, that's why you're calling me, he's likely to react angrily and feel as if he's been cheated out of what he was promised if it doesn't work out for a predictable reason the first time, then no. Then the answer is no. No, not a viable relationship, open relationship model for you two. So this is a call that you're ultimately going to have to make in consultation with your boyfriend and after looking inside your own heart and knowing your boyfriend better than I do, making the call yourself. A lot of the news out there is bad. The world is full of uncertainty, and that might leave you, like me, feeling stressed or anxious sometimes, perhaps all the time. Want some good news? You can navigate change, feel more relaxed, and quiet your mind with Calm. Calm is the #1 mental health wellness app that will give you the tools that improve the way you feel. Clear your head with guided daily meditations. Improve your focus with Calm's curated music tracks and drift off to sleep. Get yourself to dreamland with Calm's imaginative sleep stories. If you go to calm.com/savage, you'll get a limited time offer of 40% off a Calm premium subscription. That subscription, the premium subscription, includes hundreds of hours of programming, and new content is added every week. Over 100 million people all around the world use Calm to take care of their minds. Sleep more, stress less, live better with Calm. For listeners of this show, Calm again is offering a special limited time promotion of 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/savage. Go to calm.com/savage for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. That's calm.com/savage.
Hey, Dan. This is a 34-year-old bisexual male in a relationship with a 24-year-old bisexual female. We have a great, loving, awesome relationship. We are getting married at the end of the year. Everything's great. Recently, however, at work, I have met a very interesting, wonderful person, non-binary, female transitioning to male, polyamorous person that I have been hanging out with quite frequently. The other day, wanting to share this person with my fiance, all three of us went out for drinks and had an amazing time. Great connection, great conversations. Everybody was hitting it off with everyone together. My fiance and I have been mostly monogamous our entire relationship. So I popped a question about how would you feel if we added a third? She did not really take it well. She was deeply hurt by the question and has said that she has to reconsider even being friends with our new friend. How do I salvage this relationship that I don't want to lose with my friend and also be mindful of my fiance's feelings as well?
Adding a third? You went out for drinks with your fiance and a coworker, and the follow-up question for your fiance, your 10 years younger fiance, 24 years old, was not, be fun to mess around. How do you feel about open relationships? We should have a three-way sometime. Were you attracted to that person? You wanted to go right to adding a third to your relationship, becoming a triad? Proposing that to the person you proposed to after one drink with this coworker? I can see why your fiance might have been thrown by that. The reaction she's having, doesn't want to be friends with this person. She's really projecting onto this person the problem, right? She's blaming that person, your coworker, for the ask, for the problem. And the problem is you, not your coworker. Have you cleared this with your coworker? Is your coworker interested in joining your relationship, becoming a triad? And maybe, in fairness, quickly, maybe you meant have a three-way, adding a third. But that's not what you said. So I'm just running with adding a third. And it's often true when people are in relationships with someone that they want to stay with and that person fucks up and some third party is involved, rather than working through that with the person they're in the relationship with, who is the person that they fucked up, they project all of their anger onto that third party because that doesn't threaten the relationship that they've invested so much in already. If I were talking to your fiance, if she were the one who called me and said, I never want to see this coworker friend of my fiance's ever again, I would encourage her not to be angry with the coworker. I would ask her what the coworker knew and when they knew it. It seems to me that the person who fucked up here, the person that she needs to work through this with, perhaps be angry at, is the fiance. It's you, caller, you. So there's so much that you don't mention. Didn't leave a callback number. I would have called you back. Have you ever had a conversation with your fiance about being in an open relationship? Have you ever had a conversation with your fiance about polyamory? Have you discussed monogamy? Did she go into the relationship expecting monogamy? Was she flying into this with the default setting expectations of a monogamous commitment because it was a serious relationship, because you had proposed to her? Had you done any of really the legwork that might lead up to a conversation about potentially adding a third for a night or a lifetime. And if you haven't still, you have work to do. You have amends to make. I'm telling you, your fiance, she's not mad at your coworker, who she's only met one time, had drinks with once. Your coworker is an abstraction. And right now, your coworker is a stand-in for you. She is mad at you. And if you two can't address that honestly, confront that honestly, work through that together honestly, that's going to be a problem going forward in your marriage. That is a fault, a fissure that's already opened up in your relationship that even after marriage is going to continue to grow if you guys can't address that directly. So go to your fiance and apologize. Absolve your coworker. Get her to at least agree that this was your fault. Your coworker, who, for all I know, you don't say, knew nothing about this, may not even be interested in becoming your third. Coworker isn't at fault here. You are. Take responsibility for spooking your fiance like this, and then get on the same page about the commitment you've made, about the expectations she has, about whether she's even open to three-ways or open relationship, open marriage, polyamory going forward. And then maybe at some point in the future, you can readdress the possibility of adding a third for a night or a lifetime. Could even be this guy, could be the potential third in the future. If you can get your fiance to stop projecting her anger onto him, anger that should be rightly and right now directed at you. This summer is showing welcoming signs of a more normal life ahead. Finally, you can get back to enjoying life's little pleasures, like smiling at your neighbor, seeing a movie, and going to the post office? No, some parts of normal life aren't so great. But with Stamps.com, you can skip trips to the post office and save on postage. Mail and ship anywhere right from your computer. Send letters, ship packages, and pay less, a whole lot less, with discounted rates from USPS and UPS. Stamps.com saves businesses thousands of hours and tons of money every year. Stamps.com brings the same U.S. Postal and UPS shipping services right to your computer. They make it easy for small businesses to mail and ship without needing to take a trip to the post office. Print official U.S. postage and shipping labels 24/7 without having to leave your desk or buy any fancy equipment. All you need is your computer and a standard printer. Once your mail is ready, just schedule a pickup or drop it off. It's that simple. Stamps.com is a no-brainer, saving nearly 1 million small business owners time and money. They offer deals you can't get anywhere else, like up to 40% off USPS and up to 66% off UPS shipping rates. And with their Switch and Save feature, you can quickly compare carriers to find the best rates every time. Stop wasting time going to the post office. Go to Stamps.com and make them part of your new normal. There's no risk. And with my promo code SAVAGE, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in SAVAGE. That's Stamps.com, promo code SAVAGE. Stamps.com. Never, ever go to the post office again. We're going to take a quick break from your calls to speak with John McWhorter, linguist and associate professor of English and comparative literature at Columbia University. He is the author of the new book, 9 Nasty Words, English in the Gutter, Then, Now, and Forever. Hey, Professor McWhorter, thank you so much for demeaning yourself by coming on my show.
Hi, Dan Savage. Not demeaning at all.
Now, I may be biased. I use a lot of swear words, but I have not enjoyed reading a book so much in years. I absolutely devoured this book.
That is such a nice thing to know. I wrote it for enjoyment, and so I'm glad that it worked with at least one person.
From the musical comedy references, which musical comedy queen me so appreciated, to the deep dive into language and the history of profanity. It's just such a thrilling, interesting book, and it goes everywhere. That the first thing I learned reading it that surprised me was that speech, regular, everyday chit-chat, comes from one side of our brain, but curse words are fired off from the other side of our brain. What is that about, and what does it tell us about profanity?
Well, it's a funny thing because the curses seem like they're words, and of course they start as words, but really they're these eruptions that come from that more animalian part of the brain. I guess I shouldn't put it that way, but it's more about the Dionysian than the Apollonian. And it means that curses, for example, often don't make any sense. That's why. And so, for example, if you say, what the hell is that? What the fuck is this? What part of speech would you say that the hell or the fuck, if I may, are? And the thing is, they're not. It's that they are right brain eruptions in the middle of sequences put together by the left brain of vanilla language. And so curses are, of course, words originally. But really, if we started everything all over again, there'd be some different word for them than words, because what they actually are is gestures in the shape of words.
So when you say, what the fuck is that? You're not saying what the sexual intercourse is that. It's not an adjective. It's not an adverb.
No.
What the fuck is that? And what the fuck is that? What the fuck is fucking that?
It is an expletive, and it's an eruption that you use to lend color to the part of the sentence that actually makes sense. And we learn these sorts of things without thinking about it.
So fuck, the history of fuck, I think, is really best encapsulated, or the best example of how it's evolved is there was a guy named Simon Fuckbutter. Who was Simon Fuckbutter, and what does the fact that that was a surname 600 years ago, 700 years ago, have to teach us about the word fuck?
Well, the funny thing is that Simon Fuckbutter wasn't anybody in particular, nor was Roger Fuck by the Navel. These were just names that a person could have that may have been processed as a little bit salty, but they were real. We find them in sober documents. This is what somebody could have as their name and be taken seriously as a member of society. And that's because back in the 1100s and the 1200s, words about sex and words about excretion were giggly, they were salty, but they weren't considered profane. They weren't bad words in the sense that you didn't ever refer to these things in polite society. And that meant they could be in names. And it also means that those are the earliest attestations of fuck that we have. For some reason, it doesn't pop up in Old English, but then there's only so much Old English to be consulted. I'm almost sure that the word existed then. But after that, where you get it is in these names, or it's clear that people were using the word fuck with abandon.
And there's a guy that you read about, Henry Fuckbeggar. Doesn't take much imaginative leap there to figure out how he or his father got that name.
Exactly.
You write that profanity first involved the holy, only later the whole. One of the things that the book is about is the evolution of what we, culturally, as societies, regard as profane or offended by. And we call them swear words because, we used to swear that we were telling the truth. We used to swear to God. We used to swear on Jesus's bones. And that meant something important. And now we call them swear words, even though we're not swearing in that sense. So, the understanding, meaning of the word swear has evolved. But
Exactly.
How did it go from holy to holes?
It's funny, I forgot about that sentence. Yeah, it starts with blasphemy, the idea being that the worst thing you can do is swear to God in vain, i.e. not really meaning it, because this is society that's basically oral, and so swearing is a signature. Most people are illiterate, and so swearing is taken seriously. Then what happens is that in the 1400s, and especially the 1500s, a new class of words are considered really dirty, ones that you are not supposed to use except in extreme situations. And it's one part, the Reformation makes you think more about your individuality. It's one part architecture that allows more privacy. And it's one part something that no one has ever really figured out. Nobody, emblazoned this in the sky at the time. But it gets to the point that matters private about the body and what goes into it or comes out of it are now considered as, not polite as the blasphemy words used to be. And so it's not that suddenly the blasphemy words are no longer blasphemy, they are, but then you have this new set, and that is where you get shit and fuck and the like being considered bad words, whereas words for the penis and the vagina get words like that, which, even if you don't know a whole lot about it, you can tell they're very formal words. They're not original English words. They're these Latinate euphemisms. And we have this situation where you either say dick or, if I may, pussy, and those are dirty. Then you have penis and vagina, which you think of fluorescent lighting and being in a waiting room. But not just ordinary words in between. Like in Old English, the word for penis was pintle. And that wasn't dick, and it wasn't penis, it was pintle. You had a pintle. We barely have a word like that because of the sacredness that those body parts took on in terms of language at a certain time.
How did dick defeat cock? How did dick become the word that we use? Even though cocksucker continues, people throw that around. People use that. People use that affectionately. People use it as an insult. But you write that dick is the default word when we're not saying penis. We're going to use a word. It's dick, not cock. How did that happen?
Well, what we know happened is that it just became the more fashionable term, and almost certainly it was because curse words profanity needs refreshing. And so there's a reason why you say goddamn as much as damn. There's a reason why you say bullshit as much as shit. And for a very long time, the default word for penis in our vulgar register was cock. And that goes all the way up to about the 60s. It's actually surprisingly late that dick is truly attested in that meaning. It's only in the 1890s that you have a really certain reference. There are ones from the 1500s that I highly suspect are dick being referred to in that way, but they're a little ambiguous because dick could also just mean guy or fella. And it's certainly from that reference that dick came. But for a long time, it was cock, which started out as a now extinct word, pillacock, and then people started just saying cock for short. You'd think that it was about chickens, but it wasn't. And so even as late as the 60s, you have Kurt Vonnegut and one of his characters saying, drop your socks and show your cocks or something like that.
Drop
and that marks
your cocks and grab your socks.
Right, drop your and grab your socks. And that marks the book as a little bit old. I remember in college, a female friend of mine in the early 80s used cock rather than dick quite casually. But I think she was the last generation, and dick completely took over after that. And some of these things are it's drifting. It's like the hems of skirts go up and down. But certainly cock's place has been taken. Pardon me for that disgusting noise. But now cock has specialized. And so cock is now more pornographic. It's more sexual. It used to be a more default word.
It moved from holy to holes, and you argue in the book, I think very persuasively, that the new profanity is about identity. That it used to be an offense against God. Then once the emergence of sort of privacy, when we were no longer shitting and fucking in front of each other all the time, and that wasn't something that we were just used to and commented on, it shifted to identity. When was that, and what does that signify?
Well, that signifies that what profanity actually consists of is what a society is hung up about. And at one point for Anglophones, it was the blasphemy, and then it became the excretion and the body parts. And now we have what we classify in terms of vocabulary as slurs, but which really, in terms of their place in society, how they're regarded, how we handle them around children, how we censor people for using them, they are the new profanity. And that's really only happened over the past few decades. And so I think both you and I probably say fuck several times a day. And I would not say that I'm an especially profane person. It's just that the word doesn't have the power that it had even a couple generations ago. But that doesn't mean that people curse more now. It means that we have different curses. And to the extent that a person is punished for using a word, that you never use them around children, that you wish the word didn't exist, that the word has, euphemisms all over the place, that's profanity. And so I think an anthropologist would recognize the N-word today and the way that we treat it as an indication that it's become not just a slur, but a matter of profanity. There's a taboo around it. And that's also increasingly true of, if I may, faggot. And then a word that I have a hard time saying no matter where it is, but C-U-N-T, when you call somebody that. Those are now profanities in American English in particular, rather than just slurs.
I was reading the book on A Long Flight, and I got to the chapter on the N-word, which you use in the book as sparingly as possible, but you use it. And I had to put the book away or skip to the next chapter. I just skipped to the next chapter because I was really momentarily worried that someone might look over my shoulder and see pasty-ass, white, translucent me reading a book with so many N-words on the page. Even as sparingly as you tried to use them, there was a page where there were like 10 of them. And I was just like, I can't even be caught with this book in my hands in public. That's how powerful the taboo has become.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny. People are going to think I'm being coy. I didn't think that much about how extreme that was going to come off when the book came out. I figured, well, I'm black, I can do it, and good, because it'll make for a more graceful chapter than me euphemizing for 30 pages. But when the Times did an excerpt from that chapter, the excerpt people talked more about the fact that the N-word was actually spelled out than the contents of the excerpt. And all of this, as you're implying, is an indication that the word is no longer just the slur that it was until roughly the mid-1990s. Now it is a taboo word. It is profane. It's one of our magic words, so to speak. And that's because language develops, society develops, and they often do it in tandem.
John McWhorter, linguist, associate professor of English and comparative literature, Columbia University. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And again, 9 Nasty Words, English in the Gutter, Then, Now, and Forever. Buy this book. Read this book. It is such an entertaining and informative and erudite romp through the fever swamps of the English language. I loved it.
Thank you so much, Dan.
There's more from John McWhorter on the Magnum edition of the Savage Lovecast. We talk about the word faggot. We talk about the word dyke. We talk about why some slurs are turn-ons. And John takes a couple of my listener calls. That's on the Magnum edition of the Savage Lovecast that you can subscribe to at savagelovecast.com. Twice as much show, more questions, more guests, no ads. You can give it a try for just $5 for 1 month and listen to the rest of my interview with John McWhorter and binge on past Magnum editions, Magnum versions of the Savage Lovecast. savagelovecast.com.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 29-year-old male, gay male, living in the South. I'm calling because I just had a weird interaction online. I like to think of myself as kink positive, but there was a gentleman who approached me saying he would only have sex if his actual dog was allowed to watch. I'm all for kinks, but I felt like the dog was being put in a really weird place. I didn't know really how to respond, and I said no. It felt like borderline animal cruelty. I was hoping that I wasn't kink shaming him, and I didn't shame him personally, but I felt that it was a very weird request, and I guess I just don't know how I should have responded. I was hoping you maybe had some insight onto this situation in general.
I guess it all depends on the reason why he wanted the dog to watch, or that the dog would be watching. If it's just that putting the dog outside the bedroom causes the dog to howl and scrape at the door or chew up the furniture, then allowing the dog in the room, allowing the dog to sit in the corner, even if it meant the dog might be staring, he might have just been giving you a heads up that, hey, if you're uncomfortable with the dog staring at you while you're having sex, that we might have to do it at your place, because at my place, the dog is going to be in the room. Sorry about that. That's not necessarily a kink. That's not necessarily animal abuse. I hope it's not animal abuse to have sex with your dog in the room. My God, the things my dogs have seen, the things our dogs have seen. If it's animal abuse, that occasionally, incidentally, perhaps not intentionally, have sex and the dog happens to be in the room. If that's animal abuse, holy shit, we're all going to get hauled away. Every dog owner is going to get hauled away. Every cat owner who owns a cat who hasn't been silently judged from across the room by at least one of their cats while they were fucking. I don't think that qualifies as animal abuse. But could be that he was testing the waters. Could be that he's turned on by the idea of the dog watching, or this was his way of initiating a conversation about the dog maybe doing more than watching. I don't know. I can't say. I'd have to subpoena this dude and depose him and get him to answer questions no one should ask him truthfully under oath to get to the bottom of this. And you actually had the chance to get to the bottom of this when he said you have to be okay with my dog watching. All you had to say at that moment was, why? Not why do I have to be okay with it, but why is your dog going to be watching? And if it was an innocent explanation, and if it was not sexualizing the dog, if it was just, I live in a studio apartment and I have a dog, or can't put the dog outside the room because the dog freaks out, okay, well then maybe you could turn a blind eye to the dog or wear a blindfold. But if he started to breathe heavily, or he got squirrely, didn't give you a straight answer about why the dog would be watching, yeah, it's kind of a little red flag there, and you might want to pass. All right, before we get to your response calls, before we get to all that sweet, sweet listener feedback, let's read some of your tweets. Show Rouge tweets, anyone else desperate for a Use Your Words Dan Savage edition fridge magnet set? Hashtag Savage Lovecast. I love that idea, Show Rouge. I may get to work on that. Thank you. Labat tweets about the guy who eroticized sticking stuff between his toes and called the Savage Lovecast about it. I love the feeling of having something between my toes. It's not sexy for me, rather super relaxing. Also helps me with restless legs. I use nail polish toe separators. And finally, Heather Chadwick tweets, wanted to comment about the lady with the guy whose gifts she didn't like. My guy didn't always give the greatest gifts or gifts I love, but I wish I could get any gift now. He's been dead for 2 years. I'm so sorry for your loss, Heather, and thank you for taking a moment to put things in perspective for the disgruntled gift getter. All right, if you want me to read your tweet on an upcoming episode of the Savage Lovecast, be sure to use the hashtag Savage Lovecast, and we appreciate everyone who posts to social media about the show. And now, your response calls.
Hi, this is a call in response to episode 767 for the guy who was struggling with finding women who initiate, and this is a fellow black man, so I'm speaking from personal experience, and I am a pretty submissive man, so this is something that I've struggled with, and I've got sort of 3 main points that I would suggest to kind of add to what Dan said. I think the first and most important thing is to find your inner playfulness, be able to have a lightheartedness that kind of invites women to want to initiate with you and want to pursue you. Show off your body a little bit. Like I try to wear Henleys or V-necks that kind of show off a little bit of collarbone, a little chest. Wear some shorts that at most have like a 7-inch inseam. Show off your legs, show off your booty. Do what you got to do to invite that attention. Secondly, I would say, like what Dan said, filter on dating apps. So I would say things like fuck the patriarchy, or I am ethnically non-monogamous, so I would say that up front. And I have found that tends to filter out the women who want to play the traditional gender game. So that's one way. And then the other thing is, don't filter out women just based on your perception or their personality. I usually assumed that outspoken, aggressive women would be the ones that would basically provide what I wanted. And what I found is that there are a lot of quiet ones who will completely destroy you if they're given the opportunity. So best of luck. And I think most of all, have fun and be patient.
Hi, Dan. This is in response to the woman in episode 767 whose boyfriend had abuse issues in his past and substance abuse issues presently, and was into cross-dressing and cuckoldry, etc. I wanted to echo part of your answer from the perspective of someone who has struggled with substance abuse issues. I have 28 years of sobriety under my belt, and I can tell her that she would absolutely not be doing him any favors by kind of transactionally taking him back because he's getting therapy and he's promised to stop using or to go into recovery and get clean. He will not be successful in doing those things if he is doing them to get her back. You are exactly right. He has to want and do those things for himself, for his own sake, because he wants to live.
This is a response call to the guy in episode 767 who lost his dad last year and wanted to know about when to disclose that information while dating. Our stories are remarkably similar, so I wanted to weigh in and encourage you to take Dan's advice and not be so scared to disclose your experience. Last year, at 23 years old, I lost my dad too, and pretty soon after that, my girlfriend and I broke up. I'm so sorry for your loss, and it totally sucks to have everything pile on like that. For me, it made processing the grief even more difficult. I too have begun dating again and had questions about when to tell people. And like Dan said, I have found that there is often a natural lead-in during conversation, at which point it feels right to talk about family and therefore my dad's death. You aren't burdening someone by telling them your story, and I think you are demonstrating emotional maturity by being accountable for your own feelings. It's gone really well for me so far, and I anticipate the same for you. In fact, one of the girls I had gone on a few dates with is now becoming a really good friend of mine because we both lost parents young, and it's nice to have a support system like that. Good luck out there, and don't overthink it.
And we're going to leave it there. Got a question from you or a comment about this week's show? You can call us at 206-302-2064 and leave a voicemail, or you can use the voice memo app on your phone to record your question or comment and email it to us at voicemail@savagelovecast.com. My new book, Savage Love from A to Z, celebrating the 30th anniversary of Savage Love, the column, available for pre-order now. You can pre-order it on Amazon and help send Jeff Bezos to space, or you can order it through your local independent bookstore, or you can go to savagelovecast.com/shop to pre-order your copy today. Those books go on sale officially September 21st. Follow me on Twitter at FakeDanSavage. Follow John McWhorter on Twitter at John H. McWhorter. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian, and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy will all be back at you next week on an installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thanks for now.